Welcome to Intrametropolitan Technology IMT, to our online mobile phone repair training course. Today, we want to move on to the second part of the usage of DC power supply. How to use DC power supply as a diagnostic tool in repairing mobile. In the last edition, which is the part one of DC power supply, we brought a scenario whereby a customer come with a phone, a dead phone, and we were instructed that when such a thing happen, the first thing to do is use the multimeter to test the voltage inside the battery. And if the voltage inside the battery is not enough to power the phone, then you can now use DC power supply to boost the voltage of the battery to the voltage level that can power the phone. If after you have done that and the battery is still not powering the phone, then it is no longer battery issue, it's no longer the charging session. So we now want to use the DC power supply to bring up, to power up a dead phone. So how do we do that? After we have disassembled the mobile phone, we have access to the main board. This is the main board and this is the subboard. Now on the main board, especially this particular one, we need to locate the battery connector point. This is the battery connector point. So how do we now use DC power supply to bring up this phone? We have the voltage section and we have the current section. The voltage section is set at 4.2. Now take the positive probe of the DC power supply to the positive side pin of the battery connector of the phone. One thing about this is if you connect it wrongly, for example, if I mistakenly put the red probe where black supposed to be and I put black where red supposed to be, you will see there's going to be a light showing on the DC power supply and it will be reading immediately, show that there's a breach or there's a wrong connection. So that will indicate to you that you must know where the red point, the positive contact point of the battery is and connect them appropriately. Now it is connected. Now the next thing to do now is you now press the battery, the power button on the phone. As you press the back button, the reading changes. The reading changes. As the reading increases, it indicates that the phone is going to be powered up. Let's check the screen. Yes, the phone is already powered on. And as you look at the screen, and the current section on DC power supply, it is still reading to show that this phone is going to be powered on. And this is simply how to use DC power supply to power on a phone brought dead by the client. This another mobile phone that want to use DC power supply to power up. So this mobile phone also have its battery connector the same way as the one we just finished with. Now you see there's a wrong connection, that's why it's reading down and the light is showing. So which means the black probe supposed to be here while the red probe supposed to be here. Now that you have put the red probe and the black probe where it's supposed to be, now in this particular one now, we are assuming that this board or this phone does not have power button, and if it doesn't have power button, as an engineer or technician, you should be able to locate the point, the powering point on the board, that you can now use your tweezer to bridge. Now you locate any ground, and in the case of this board now, this particular point, this test point, is the power button test point. So what we need to do is you place your probe. As I place it, as I place my tweezer on the ground, and I touch that test point, is reading, and you can see that on the DC power supply, the readings has changed, and the phone is coming up, and the reading continues. Then I can now remove the tweezer and see that the phone continues. Now, in this testing, using empowering up a phone or a board using this power supply, I have shown in the previous presentation how to use this power supply to power up a phone that have this kind of battery connector. Then now I want to also show how to power up a phone that has this kind of battery connector, whereby the battery use clip, and in such a case we need a battery clip, connect it to the battery connector on the board. After we have connected it, then we take the red probe of the DC power supply to the battery plus, this is B plus, and the negative flow to B minus. The same thing, if you connect it wrongly, you put plus where minus should be, it will show that it bridges. Now, but it is indicated that the B plus is the battery uh, point. Then after you have done that, we now need to look for the power button on this board. And how do we identify that? As a good technician, we locate where the power button is, and which is this, because it is indicated PWR. So this is the power button. Then you now bridge it with the ground. As you bridge it with the ground, it's supposed to be showing here to show that the board is alive or can come alive. But if it remains 000, which means there is an issue with this board. And with using this power supply, it gives you some figures from 000 to 01, 10, 20, 30, 40, and so on. As a good technician, when you see those figures, you will know what exactly is happening. But if the figure remains 000, it's a power issue, which means you'll be talking about the power IC, which is the PMU. PMU stands for power management unit. It can be CPU, which is central processing unit, or it can be flash. All these components on this board has different reading, and it is the work of a technician to know which reading gives the error of which of the components on the board. So this is how far we can go on how to use this power supply to power a board, and the deeper part of it is covered in our classroom work or on further consultation. Thank you.